Good evening, Kevin, Property Soldier here, going out on my different social media channels, but also recording this as an episode for my Serviced Accommodation Property podcast. And this is a live mentoring talk with Steve. So I put a post out saying anyone want a live mentoring call to go out live and be a podcast episode. And Steve said yes, and so I just at random picked some people, and Steve answered the call to go live this evening. So, Steve, we had a brief chat just before going live, and so you're plumbing and heating engineer, but also looking to scale your property business and service accommodation. Funny old thing, the subject of tonight's mentoring call. And so you haven't started your journey yet. In fact, you just told me that you're due to be attending my training, service accommodation training, which is cool, or one of my service accommodation training days. It's actually a discovery day that you're attending, isn't it? Yes. By the way, anyone that is interested in attending one of my discovery days, did you get it for free? Because sometimes I sell these tickets, and sometimes
I think you sent me a message, and I think you let me in for nothing. So
okay, yeah. So anyone that does want to contact me privately, then or just message me or comment or whatever, and I can get you a free ticket to these discovery days as well, which is a day with me at Progressive Property HQ in Peterborough, talking about service accommodation. All right, Steve. So how can I help you? So you mentioned that you're in Leeds, but you've got a few questions to start off with in terms of your gold mine area. Was that right?
Yeah, pretty much so. Yeah, I'm struggling to locate a decent area within Leeds. I think a lot of it's heavily student towards the city centre. Obviously, you've got quite a lot of high-end apartments within the city centre. It's just keep getting kickbacks with leases and stuff in regards to short-term accommodation. And apartments better for it, or should we be looking for more houses to do it? Obviously, being in the trade, we're happy to take on a renovation project. I mean, that's ideal for us to buy it, renovate it, and get it into SA. So I'm struggling to pick the sort of right area for it at the moment.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple of things there, Steve, and so you mentioned leases. If a lease actually says no short-term rental, then that's pretty unequivocal. That's actually quite straightforward. So if it says that, then that's absolutely fine. A lot of people do get misunderstand when it says no business use or something like that. But if it says no short-term rentals, then great, move on. You know, sure. There's over 80% of properties in the UK are. We got a bit of feedback, haven't we? I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do about feedback. I can maybe put earplugs in, but that might take a while. You haven't got any other devices live or anything like that? No, that's absolutely fine. Okay, I'll crack on. I don't think it's too bad. It might even just be me. Okay, so the leases bit, over 80% of properties are freehold in England, at least. Scotland's slightly different, but so leases aren't a problem in most cases. And then obviously, not all leases don't prohibit SA. So it's a case of finding a lease that allows SA. Now, one of the things that you mentioned just now in terms of your trade and your business yourself is that presumably you will know contractors, or at least move in those circles of people that would definitely stay in service accommodation if it saves them money on a hotel, right?
Right, okay, yeah. I've been more thinking about the holiday sort of market rather than that sort of angle of it.
Yeah, cool. Well, this is what most people, because obviously you haven't sort of attended any formal training yet. Most people do focus on the leisure side of SA. And yes, at the moment that is booming. Yeah, don't get me wrong. It really is booming. I was having a mentoring call yesterday with somebody, and they're cash flowing in excess of £2,000 a month from rent to SA properties.
Nice.
And that's someone that's only just started out. So yeah, it really is booming. But one of the things that helps you acquire SA properties is actually to reassure the landlord or letting agent, or property owner, whatever you want, whoever you're speaking to, that you have already got clients lined up
Okay,
So if you're able to name drop a construction firm or builder company or something like that who require accommodation in Leeds, for instance, then that's an awful lot easier by saying, look, I just want to rent a property from you and list it on Airbnb.
Yeah, okay.
Coming from.
But
by the way, yeah, absolutely. But by the way, we always do, before we sign a contract, we always do say to the letting agent or to the owner, we do also market on platforms like Airbnb and Booking.com, because that's how an awful lot of contractors book. Now, the reason why we do actually target contractors and trades is because they typically stay for much longer periods of time. And so there's a lot less costs in terms of cleaning and laundry and turnovers, and there's obviously no void if they're staying for months at a time. So the profit margins can be astronomical from those types of bookings. And then the ideal scenario is that you've also got leisure guests and you've got contractors type of bookings as well, because then you've got more demand for SA. So when there's more demand for something, the price of that thing goes up. So actually, that would be a good thing for you to do, is to start to focus on who you can name drop and genuinely maybe try and source bookings for properties in advance of you acquiring properties.
Right, okay. Yeah.
That would be a good thing to do. Now, what you mentioned just now is Leeds, the sort of centre of Leeds being ideal for SA, and then sort of getting further out, not so much, or certain parts being a shithole. I don't mind swearing, by the way. I was 24 years in the army, so if people don't like it, you know, they can go find somebody else to follow or whatever. But so I actually stumbled across this loophole in that properties that would be classed as being in a shithole actually work really well for serviced accommodation.
Right.
And the reason why I stumbled across that is because when I was building up my buy-to-let portfolio, I was choosing inner city, terraced, bog standard property, not any fancy part of town. You know, literally what we call just outside of the Bronx. You know. And then when I started getting properties like that back from tenants, because of Section 24, the anti-landlord tax, where you can't offset your mortgage interest when you own the property in your own name, I would start moving those properties into SA and list them on Airbnb and Booking.com. And I was finding that I was still getting leisure bookings, but also they'd be very attractive to the trades, because you can be accommodating, you know, five trades in a 2-bed house, you know, single beds in the bedrooms and a sofa bed, 5 trades who've got their own lounge and kitchen. So that would be saving them lots of money. So I discovered that it works really, really well. So what I would say to you, Steve, is not to discount the cheaper end of town. Definitely not in the Bronx, but maybe not far away. You can rent property there, and as long as the car is safe outside and there's some parking not too far away, that, you know, people don't mind a short walk.
Okay.
And the property's nice on the inside, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the thing to remember is that your competition, most of your competition, will just be focusing on purpose-built apartments in a city centre.
Yeah.
And so if you step away from that,
that's kind of what I'm focusing on at the moment. So,
well, you haven't had any sort of formal training yet, and I'm going to be showing you bog standard terrace properties when you come to Peterborough that don't look anything from the outside. On the inside, they're fine, they're nice, and I'll be showing you the night rates, and I'll be showing you the internal photos and the bookings and all of that good stuff. So that will hopefully open your eyes as to a lot of other types of properties that you can go and target. And so you mentioned earlier, I think, that when we had a quick chat, that you're also interested in doing some purchase to SA as well. Yeah,
definitely. We've got a couple of investors we've had a few meetings with now. Some of them have got quite a substantial amount of money to put into the market. So JV and all that lot, I need to sort of work out how to structure that with the investors, really. And I don't know if I'm getting too bogged down with the intricacies of all that, rather than maybe just leveraging a solicitor to sort that out and work that out for us also.
Well, I mean, you can obviously set the groundwork with your investors, and so you're going to come in and start off getting some training with me. Ultimately, you'll be able to source rent to SA property and purchase to SA property. And for investors, they might actually overlook the possibilities of rent to SA property. But if you can imagine, I mean, typically, are you thinking about the 150 price range in Leeds purchase price, or
a little bit more? I mean, for
more?
apartments, yeah, you're talking a little bit more than that. But you can get, like you're saying, within the.
But remember, you might not need to focus on the purpose-built city centre apartments.
Yeah. I mean, we can still pick stuff up for 75 to 100 grand in those areas, 2-3 bedders quite comfortably.
Yeah, right. Well, guess what? That's where you're going to get a better return on investment.
Sure.
Purchase to SA. I don't do fancy city centre apartments for purchase to SA. I do bulk standard inner city terraced for purchase to SA, because you can still do buy, refurbish, refinance.
Yeah.
Okay, and be pulling your money back out, especially being in the trade. But even normal civilians can still do buy, refurbish, refinance. They've just got to pay the extra to the trade. And so that's what I would be focusing on for you, because that's going to give you a much better return on investment and your investors, because your gross yield, it tracks the same as buy to let.
Yeah.
You end up with a much better gross yield on buy to let, and exactly the same principle applies for SA. Your gross yield is a lot higher on the cheaper properties.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're running some numbers within the stuff within Harrogate we've just been looking at. As a single buy to let, if we had to fall back on it, it's not great at all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, I mean, modelling the property on what you could achieve with buy to let. If you can earn money from it as buy to let, then great. But the same property you can use as SA, and it's a fallback position as well, isn't it? And the thing to remember is lenders will value the property based on normal buy to let returns as well. So the rent mortgage ratio will be based on buy to let figures. The point is, though, that you will be able to then use the property as serviced accommodation. Your product will allow serviced accommodation, but that's the way the reason why they do that is because there's no commercial valuation based on serviced accommodation, and so therefore, if they pull the property back or have to take it back, then as long as it stacks as a buy to let, then they're happy. But again, for you and your investors, I would suggest that is the better return. To go down that route for the purchase to SA. Now, yeah, fine. If you're going to do a bit of rent to SA, there's still nothing wrong with the cheaper end of the market. The yield still works better. But it depends on your clientele. It depends on that. But for purchase to SA, I would still focus on the more modest property. Now, the thing to remember for your investors, Steve, is that you're going to start learning more when you come to me about capital allowances as well. Yeah. And also the right owning entity is important, because a lot of people are just going to default these days to buying in a limited company. Now, that might be the right solution if a lender wants it to be bought in a limited company, or if the investors want the money secured inside of a limited company, and the limited company is the purchase vehicle. But it doesn't have to be in a limited company in order to avoid Section 24 tax. Okay. And that's why most people are doing it these days, is to avoid Section 24, because in a limited company you can still offset your mortgage interest. Right. But that's because buy to let and HMO is investment income, and Section 24 affects that rental income, whereas Section 24 does not affect serviced accommodation. So with your serviced accommodation properties, even though they're bog standard terrace type property, the income from it will sit on the furnished holiday let page of the tax return. Okay, yeah. And that is trading income. And therefore you can then in the same column offset all of your mortgage interest against that income and not be affected by it. Because properties owned in a limited company, well, the money's in the limited company, And then to get the money out of the limited company, you've got to pay, dividend tax and income tax at whatever income tax rate you're at.
Yes.
So yeah, there's different mechanisms for moving money around, but it's just so much more clunky than it just the property being in your own name. In my experience, it's a lot more profitable the property being in your own name.
That's really useful. That's
so
great.
that's something to bear in mind for you and your investors. Now, the other thing that I'll come to is capital allowances, because if your investors are high net worth individuals and higher rate taxpayers or additional rate taxpayers, etc., then they should definitely be made aware of the significance of capital allowances. Now, capital allowances for serviced accommodation property, it's about 35% of the expenditure on the property. Actually, up north, South Wales, it's a higher percentage. This is just a UK sort of average. Right. So if you imagine, just round figures here, £200,000 property, you might have bought it for 180, spent 20 grand on it. So 200 grand in total expenditure. 35% of that is 70,000, which means that you can now earn £70,000 tax free. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you own that property in your own name, you're offsetting 70 grand's worth of income against your personal income tax rate.
Yeah.
If that is owned in a limited company, all you're saving is 19% corporation tax, and then you've got to pay income tax on getting the money out.
Yeah.
So how you purchase is very, very, very important in terms of tax planning for you and your investors moving forward, and it can save you and your investors a hell of a lot of money in tax.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Cool. So we've talked about maybe not thinking slightly outside of the box in terms of don't follow the herd, because all your competitors are going to be in a close-knit area. And especially with the trades, and most leisure guests, they've all got cars. They're not worrying about being in the town centre. No. They're more interested in saving money on hotels. Okay,
yeah.
So don't worry about the town centres. If you find a good one in the town centre, that's great. Try and line up some clients in advance. That's going to definitely help you acquire properties. For your investors, if you imagine, £100,000 pot to invest, that's a couple of deposits, 2 or 3 deposits, whatever, depends on how expensive. Yeah. Or it's a hell of a lot of rent to SA properties. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can be cash flowing £1,000 a month easy. I mean, a couple of thousand at the moment from a rent to SA.
Yeah. Would you just be sort of giving the joint venture partner sort of a percentage back on their money, or would you split it 50-50, or does it depend what they want?
Yeah, it totally depends. One of the things that you should always ask your investor is you should just we call it the values elicitation script. You want to be asking the question, what is most important to you in this joint venture, and what is it that you want to see? Okay, yeah. Is it return? Is it an exit strategy? Is it security? Okay, what interest rate would work for you in terms of return on investment?
Okay, so put it back on them to sort of decide what they deal.
Because some people say, oh, right, I'll tell you what I can do, and they just squeeze themselves to death, and they say, look, I can give you 10% return on your money or 12% return on your money. And actually, some investors go, whoa, that sounds like something that's dodgy. You must be doing something dodgy to be able to give me that money. I'm out. This is a little bit good for me. They're used to ridiculously low returns. And you just got to remember that your investors, they're getting such terrible returns at the moment in the bank. Their money is actually going down in value because of inflation. So when you can create a win-win situation for your investors, and you can, I mean, one of the things that you should be saying to your investors is you're a property investor. You use your investors' funds secured against property, giving them a much better rate of return on their money than they're getting in the bank. And that's the sort of thing that people should be saying to people that they meet at parties and things like that. Because you haven't asked them for money, but you're basically telling them how they could be earning a lot more money if they give their money to you. Yeah. So that's something for working with your investors. It starts off with a blank piece of paper. Obviously, we'll talk more about this when you come to Peterborough. Sure. But you can essentially reverse engineer how to present the deal to the investor once you've listened to what the investor wants.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people will just go to an investor and say, okay, I want your money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, the other. And that the investor might not say anything. The investor might just say, let me have a think about it. But they're out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. So definitely, I mean, obviously it's a bit too much to take in right now, but you are coming to the discovery day. So we'll have a lot more time to talk about it. I can show you case studies and things like that. But using other people's money, yeah, we've touched on that. The different type of owning entity. So what we do suggest is that you operate your service accommodation business using a limited company.
Okay.
Because in the limited company, that's the guests sign your terms and conditions of your limited company. The limited company has the contract with Booking.com, Airbnb, etc., with your cleaners, with the laundry company. The limited company takes the property on, say, a rent to SA. Okay.
Yeah.
Or that limited company manages your own properties that you own yourself. Okay.
Right.
So the limited company is like the letting agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the limited company has its public liability insurance. Anyone slips up and hurts himself in the shower, then they're going to claim off that insurance. Whereas some people make the mistake of doing it in their own name, and you've got no liability cover there.
Okay. Yeah.
So how you own the property depends. It could be owned in your own name. It can be a partnership or a limited liability partnership, or it could be a limited company. So what I'd suggest is, however a property is currently owned, that's fine, leave it as it is. Set up a limited company in order to manage the service accommodation for that owning entity.
Yeah. But it's protected then as well against any claims, or the property will be protected against any claims as well.
Yeah, public liability insurance, yeah. But how you go out and purchase property moving forward has to be modelled based on the tax scenario moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Because one thing to remember with service accommodation is the income from service accommodation is VATable. So the VAT threshold is 85,000, and then above that you need to be paying VAT on your SA turnover or profit. One of the things, this is something really important, and you will talk about this more when you come to see me, is the TOM scheme for VAT. Now, the TOM scheme for VAT is the tour operator's margin scheme, and effectively, on TOMs, you use that with rent to SA. People get this completely wrong. People end up going full VAT registered on income from rent to SA way too soon.
Yeah.
They thought they've saved themselves some money on not attending any training courses or anything like that, and they've just ended up going through the VAT threshold with, say, 3 rent to SAs. Okay. Whereas actually, if they'd have registered for the TOM scheme, they could have had 15 rent to SAs before going through the VAT threshold.
Yeah.
Because the TOM scheme is effectively your margin, the difference, it's effectively your profit. And when your profit goes past 85 grand, that's when you become VAT registered.
That's quite good, because every other business, it's, well, my plumbing heat business, obviously, as soon as you crack over the 80 odd grand, it's therefore you're in VAT. That's just turnover, not profit.
Yeah. Now, the thing to remember, so what you would do is you would ring fence your rent to SA, and you definitely make sure you go onto the TOM scheme. And you might decide to either smash through the VAT, or do you know what? I won't add another rent to SA because that I'm staying below the VAT threshold. But you would be able to have a lot more rent to SAs on TOMs and stay below the VAT threshold.
Okay.
But then you might decide, well, now I'm going to do a purchase to SA. Well, you would do that, and you might do it in your own name. And by the way, you've got your own VAT threshold, as you probably know, as being a business yourself. So your property's in your own name. You would basically model that. That's a different operating and owning entity, so it's got its own VAT threshold. Now, you mentioned about potentially doing joint ventures with your investors. Well, if you set up an SPV, a limited company, then that can go and buy property That's got its own VAT threshold.
Okay.
And then you've got what a lot of people do once they set up SA and they understand they've got their cleaning and they've got their laundry set up, etc., is they then go into what we call service accommodation management. Now, service accommodation management is where people will just bring their properties to you, ready to go, furnished, fully equipped, ready to go, and you just plug them into your channel manager effectively and use your cleaners and your laundry system. Now, why would owners do that? I mean, this is where you don't even have to pay any rent or deposit. Okay, I've trained people up in SA that are on 300 plus SA management properties now. Okay. Wow. Why would people do that? Because they're going to avoid Section 24, and there's 600,000 landlords out there that are higher rate taxpayers now because of Section 24. So they can avoid get back below the VAT threshold, not the income tax threshold. And once you start telling them that they can be getting tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of tax-free income because of capital allowances, that's why they will give you their properties as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's exciting times, Steve, because basically, let's go. Let's tear shit up, right?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, cool. So any final question from me before? Obviously, I'll be seeing you. Was it next Friday? I'll be seeing you soon.
Yeah, I think it is next Friday. Yeah, I'm going to bottle them all up till then and pounce on you. And
Well, basically, I mean, you can listen to this podcast recording, but you can go back into the progressive community or the my page or however people are watching this. I think it's also on YouTube, etc. So you can go back and watch it back again and catch up. But write down some questions and let me know. So the discovery day. So have you got it in your diary, Steve? So let me have a look. Somebody's just asked. I'll answer this question for people. When is the discovery day? If anyone does want a free ticket, it's Friday the 27th. If anyone want a free ticket, then send me a message and I will respond with your link. I won't put the links in the comments because effectively Facebook doesn't like external links and it kills the reach of posts and things like that. Send me a direct message. I'll respond with the link and then you can get two. Did you get 2 free tickets?
Just one, just for me coming down. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you want another one, you can have one more if you need one. But that's fine.
I don't need one at the minute now. Just
If anyone wants another free ticket or 2 free tickets, then send me a message and I will respond with 2 free tickets that you can come on to my service accommodation discovery day in Peterborough, and all the information, the logistics, where to park, all that stuff will be in there for you. Okay, so thanks very much, Steve. Thanks very much for watching, those people that have been watching this live. For those people listening into the podcast, if you reach out to me via my website as well, you can, the Property Soldier website, www.propertysoldier.co.uk. I will also respond giving you the link to the discovery day. So here's to your service accommodation success, everyone. Say goodnight, Steve.
Good night. Cheers, Kevin. Appreciate that. Thank you.
And remember, everyone, your future needs you. Take care.